Okay, good morning. We are going to just wait a couple minutes to let everybody log in. I see some people joining. I'm just going to wait a few more minutes. For those of you who were here last week and witnessed our technical difficulties, I am so sorry and appreciate you showing up again today. We're just going to wait a couple minutes and let everybody else log in and then get started. Okay. Welcome to our very first Design Talk Live. I'm really excited to be here today, and we have Allie Mammon here today as our guest. Thank you so much for being here, Allie. I'm going to bring Allie in a moment, but I first just want to do a quick introductory on Allie. Allie is the creative director and co-founder of Threadcount, and also happens to be a very close friend of mine, thank God, given all the technical difficulties we had last week. And for those who are not familiar with Threadcount Textile and Design, it's an incredible boutique Canadian-born textile brand that specializes in providing high-quality natural textiles and harmonizes with responsible design. And we're going to get into sustainability and responsible design once we bring Allie in. Allie and I have over a 12-year working relationship and friendship, and I'm going to let her share with all of you what's so special about Threadcount and talk a little bit about her background. Let me just bring her in.
Hi. Can you hear me?
One sec, Al. Okay, welcome, Allie.
Thank you. Thank you for the intro.
So, Al,
yeah.
I just gave everybody a quick intro on you and I, and about our friendship and our working relationship. And I'd love for you to share a little bit with the designers about how you got into the world of textiles.
Okay. So my parents come from a fashion background, and there was a big market crash in the 80s in Toronto. They had a few stores across Toronto and Canada, and then they shut down their stores. And my father ended up buying a really cute textile shop at Queen and Spadina that catered to selling to fashion clients and all the couturists that were in Toronto at the time. And then my other sister, my sister, who's my partner now, Natalie, went to work corporate world, hated it, decided to go work with my father and help him out. And kind of like the odd interior designer would come in and order like 5 times the amount of fabric. And then my other sister, Dahlia, is actually an interior designer and educated Natalie on the industry and the beauty of the industry and, what makes fabrics different in interiors versus fashion. And then Natalie had an idea and a passion for creating a new brand. And at the time, she was having some health issues, and she really wanted to focus on natural textiles. That was the main focus. And then she had the idea to come up with a new brand. And then I came on board with her. We've had a historic working relationship since I was very little. And then we opened up our first showroom in the Castlefield Design District in 2007. Alongside some really great brands. And then we literally just hustled and bustled and worked our way into the industry with high focus of linens, silks, cottons, wools, with like a vast color range in each line. And really went on the road, did presentations, and built our clientele from there.
Incredible. So you basically lived and breathed textiles since you were a kid.
Yes.
And I love how you and Natalie are have the whole family story, how your sister is an interior designer and you and Natalie are such incredible business partners and clearly bring very different things to the table, which makes you such a dynamic pair.
Thanks.
I want to get in. So, as I mentioned before, you and I have had a working relationship. We became friends through work. We've been working together for 12 years, and Threadcount has really become my go to for sourcing fabrics. And I talk a lot in my workshop and in the Design Talk Network about how important our vendor relationships are, and how important it is to create loyal and very strong relationships within each category. So, for example, the way I run my business, as you know, I 90% of the time source my fabrics through Threadcount. Only will I go to somebody else if there's something very particular that I'm looking for that I can't find within your library. And I think that as designers, we're responsible for sourcing such a wide range of products. I mean, we're responsible for sourcing everything from toilets to fabrics and everything in between. And because of that, we rely so heavily on our vendors to, you're almost a representation of us, right? Like, we rely on you to guide us in the right direction, to make sure that we're making the right choices for our clients and their lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I think the more that I talk about this a lot, that the more we foster those relationships with our vendors, the greater synergy and the easier the working relationship becomes. I mean, we can look at our relationship where we were even 10 years ago today to now, and how much our relationship has grown, and just how much easier the communication has become.
Yes.
And, with that being said, and talking about how we rely on our vendors so much to provide us with knowledge and education on these individual products and categories, can you give us a brief rundown on natural fibers versus synthetic, and then also things that we can be aware of when sourcing fabrics for let's say large pieces of furniture that are going to be in a high traffic area, or drapery? I'd love to hear your some tips on that.
Sure. Totally. I especially really connect with what you're saying. And one of the things actually that we really feel for, and we really like to work with, not on just a brand level, but on a business level, is the relationship with the designer, and the understanding that the designer is responsible for understanding so many different materials. And there's no way for a designer to properly understand what's going on technically with rugs and carpet and wall covering. So it is very important to establish these relationships that we have, which ends up saving costs for the designer, I feel, in the long run, from making mistakes, sourcing the wrong fabric, for example, for a sofa that they weren't in the know of because they didn't ask the questions, or something, the tag says this, but it doesn't say that. There's a lot of technical information that's involved in sourcing a fabric, whether it's natural or synthetic. I think that there's a lot of questions to ask before we even get into the sourcing portion of choosing the fabric. Like, what kind of clientele are you going? What kind of, so let's say it's a sofa. What kind of piece do you want to give to this client? Are they asking for something that's, there's this new fixation in North America now of having bulletproof upholstery that's slobber proof, cat proof, dog proof, baby proof, and all of the things that happen in selecting a fabric that has all those things, which ends up most of the time being the most unsustainable option and the most toxic option for your home. And also the option that ends up being mass produced and looks like it's everywhere else from a store, that you can buy that piece, there or there or there. So there's nothing really unique and wholesome about those selections. So I always, as a brand, Threadcount, we're always teaching the designer to look at sustainable options and natural options. And not to say that you can't use synthetics, which are man-made, because they are now coming out with some more synthetics that are removing the chemicals that are toxic. And now we're coming out with recycled yarns, and there's a lot of progression happening in that arena. But to me, I also love naturals, because we have to embrace imperfect. And in order to have luxury in a space, we can't look at something lasting forever. Or if it does, if you're using a beautiful velvet, for example, that stands the test of time, it looks more beautiful with age. The more worn in it looks, it's gorgeous. Natural fabrics for me are the heart of what we do. And it's like, you can go and, choose a synthetic, but it's not going to be as beautiful and as rich as choosing a beautiful natural textile. You can feel it in all essence of a space. And every time you're sourcing, when I walk into a space and I'm looking at, synthetics versus naturals, it's like night and day every time, commercially and residentially.
And talking about that lived-in look, that's something that I actually talk to my clients about a lot. Whenever people ask me for that bulletproof, whether it's a fabric or any material, my answer is that doesn't exist. And if you're gonna live in your house, you want your house to look lived in and enjoyed, and a perfectly polished, untouched home is not a lived in home. So I think that's something also that as designers we can, work to warm up our clients to that idea.
Yes. And also I find that people tend to like the olden days, people used to, make a piece and want it for 25 years and put plastic covers on top of it and nothing, but I think we're in a new age where people get bored quicker. They want to reinvent their pieces maybe every 5-10 years. So to look at that piece that you're creating and making it beautiful for the time that you have it, it ends up being something that's really important, I think.
Absolutely. And what are your thoughts on stain guarding? A lot of clients are concerned again about the longevity and about kids and dogs and just being able to remove stains from their furniture.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of discussion of stain guarding. It is a toxic process. So you have to think if you're putting stain guarding on your sofa and your kids are spending, much of their time on the sofa and you have indoor air quality, you need to think about those things. It does off gas. There are stain guarding companies that have said they have removed chemicals, specific chemicals. However, if you ask them for an ingredient list, it's not revealed. We don't really know. And I don't really believe that there's a natural stain guard that's effective out there right now. So it really is a choice at the end of the day. And it's the designer's responsibility to educate their clients on that option and being like, yes, do you want happily, we have a stain guard companies that we recommend if the client wants it 100%. But it's also important as a designer to educate their clients to say, hey, this is what's involved in stain guarding. It's also not forever. There is a lifeline on stain guarding as well, which is about 5 years. And, you can decide, hey, you know what, instead of stain guarding my couch, I'll relook at my couch in 5 to 8 years and then reupholster it. Or you could say, I want it stain guarded, but you know what? It's still not going to bulletproof your sofa, to be honest.
And that sort of was going to be my next question. If we do stain guard, how much do you actually believe that it increases the durability and the ability to remove stains off of the sofa, or does it depend on the fiber?
It definitely depends on the fiber. I always say, even if something is stain guarded or not, to always just use the natural way of cleaning upholstery with regular warm water and a damp cloth. Yes, stain guarding does protect from the absorption of stains going in. There is a truth to that, so it does help. So it is a decision. Again, it is an effective decision. If you want your fabrics to be stain proof and you want it to help, the stain guarding does help in that arena. But it also could add starchiness and toxic off-gassing in your home. So it's not a one or the other for me. It's like, for me, I would never do it in my own home, but it's a personal choice. And I always educate the designer to tell their clients that option, because most of the people don't know. Designers are just like stain guard, and then they don't understand what's actually going onto their sofa.
If it's not tested, it can also change the character of the fabric. I've had that happen too, where we've stain guarded and the fabric has had a reaction to it. So it's important, if you are stain guarding, that you test it always.
Yeah, we're always happy to give a sample out for you to test with the, we have a company, third party that we work with, and we will give a small sample for you to test at any time.
Okay, that's good to know. And in terms of stain guarding, when you talk about off-gassing, I know that you guys do offer the option to stain guard, like treat the fabric prior to it being sent to the upholsterer. Does that like have less of an impact on the environment, or is it one and the same?
So those are, I think, okay, you're talking about pre-production stain guarding at the garden table. It is better. it is a better option, but I think it still offers the chemicals and the off-gassing as well. Whether it's done at that level or even after, it's better not to spray your house, obviously, and take it into your home and spray it. So either the best part is to do it at the mill level. If it's not done at the mill level, then do it post-production. I would never recommend spraying in your home. That's the last option, and I would not recommend that.
Okay, good to know. Thank you. And while we're on, I guess, the topic of sustainability, where is the world headed in terms of sustainability, and is it something that you're seeing designers be more cognizant of?
So sustainability, we were talking sustainability, 15 years ago, nobody was listening. And now you can see that we have to listen because there are things happening in the environment, in the world. We're getting, more heat waves, more flooding. There are things happening now where we need to start paying attention. Sustainability for us at Threadcount is an evolution. We don't just say, hey, that's a sustainable fabric and that's what it is, because it's an evolution. There's a multitude of technical information and processing and testing and production that goes into making a fabric. So it could be sustainable on one end, but not the other. We're all working towards creating a circular economy where the goal is just to close the loop and make sure that everything we're using as a designer in the material world, we could reuse, recycle, repurpose, and create and close the loop to minimize waste and consumption. And we're all working towards that goal. And there's a multifaceted way to do that. And when we're talking about synthetic versus natural fibers, what makes naturals the more, attractive fiber is that it breaks down, it's biodegradable. Synthetics are made with, petrochemicals. They don't break down in landfills. They sit for years and years and years, and they just sit there. This is one of the biggest problems we're having right now. And the textile industry alone is one of the most wasteful industries in our world right now, between fashion and interiors. And we are also having an issue with, now we're coming out with recycled yarns, and that's great. And it's amazing. But we have the second half of the issue of, what are we doing with these recycled yarns? We need to use our technology now. They are in Denmark, which is the first that I've seen, where they're taking textiles and they're breaking them down at the yarn level to separate and be able to take that, recycle it, and repurpose it to make new products. Unfortunately, in Canada and in North America in general, I feel like we don't have those facilities set up right now. So it's a work in progress on our end to get those set up. But in the meantime, we can do other things like repurpose, like Threadcount takes our sampling and we give it to local companies to make dog beds and reuse. And there's little local initiatives that we can do in order to, keep recircling the fabric and make sure it doesn't go to waste. And then on the production side, we're working with reducing chemicals and working with natural dyes. There's a lot of innovation happening right now with plant-based textiles using food like leftover banana materials, seaweed to produce algae. There's a lot of incredible innovation.
That's so interesting. Amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's very reassuring to hear that it's at the forefront of your guys' minds, and it's something that you're sort of taking control of, because from a sustainability perspective, I personally, as a designer, want my designs to be sustainable, and it is very important that we're taking care of the environment. But on the other hand, going back to the conversation earlier about how we're responsible as designers for so much, sourcing so many different materials, and we have to keep profitability in mind, right? So we have to obviously be mindful of our time and the amount of time that we're spending doing research when it comes to sourcing and the products that we're using. So that's why I think it's so important that we carefully choose our vendors and secure partnerships with people where their principles and values are aligned with ours. And I can't stress enough how important it is for us to choose our vendors within each category and not feel like we need a plethora of vendors for each category. Yeah. So I'm very proud to, for that Threadcount is represented in almost, I would say, all of my projects. And in my entire home personally.
Oh,
And going back to the profitability thing and how that's so important for designers, and obviously is at the forefront of all of our minds. After connecting with so many designers through my DYB workshop and through the Design Talk Network, and having the chance to really have dialogue with people, I think that undoubtedly the biggest pain point for designers is achieving profitability. And I think that one of the things that I stress is that it's impossible to achieve profitability through designs, solely through design services, and how important it is for us to be profitable on the materials and the products and the furniture that we're selling. Can you talk a little bit about how, as designers, we can maximize profitability on our fabric choices?
Totally. I think I just want to reverse a little bit and just mention one thing. As a designer, I think it's really important on the sustainability side when you are deciding on a sustainable choice or not. The biggest part about all of this and what needs to happen as a learning designer or coming into the industry or learning for the first time is learning how to really educate your clients. And this is not just about sustainability. It's a lot of decisions, and you becoming a trusted source and you really having to teach the end user, because most of these end users and clients don't have a clue about what's actually happening in our industry, what's going on, what's important. And yes, you're already responsible for a million things, but to educate yourself in these arenas is something that's very important. And for us, we're always doing seminars and lunch and learns and showroom events. And if there's anything that any designers want to request from us and they're like, hey, we want to get like 10 designers together to learn about this, we are always on board to do that. So just as an FYI for anyone that wants education and to learn more, because I could do a whole session just on sustainability alone. That would be, a 2-hour discussion or 1-hour discussion with like really quick, but that option is always there.
Amazing. Sorry, before you go and answer that question, I do want to mention that thank you. And we are going to get into your designer program and how you work with designers, because I think it's really important that you share that information. And we're also going to have a Q&A session at the end. I do see that somebody has asked a question that we can maybe answer at the end. But before you talk about how to maximize profitability on our fabric choices, I do also want to mention to you that what I talk about a lot in the network and my workshop is that the sexy projects that a lot of designers are out to get, the ones that are the creative opportunities, are often not the most profitable projects. And I talk about how it's really important to have a healthy mix. Of course, we all want the sexy projects that are going to build our portfolio and get us published. But where I'm going with this is what I do in my business and what I always suggest in my workshop is that we don't always have to reinvent the wheel. Clients often want what they've seen before when they're making big investments, and they aren't looking for something unique or always different from the next person. And what I do in my business is I have a few go-to fabrics. As you see my orders come in that I always use for drapery. For example, Manchester wool. Always use it for drapery when my clients can afford it. And then I have a few go-to fabrics for sofas. And if you switch the rest of the smaller items up, nobody's really going to notice that you're reusing the same fabrics. And even if they do, it can be like my Manchester wool I think it's people recognize that my drapery always blends in with the room, and it can be something that adds to your signature style. There's nothing wrong with reusing the same things from one project to the next. So the second part to my question is, if designers are asking, like, what are 3 go-to fabrics that are cost effective that we should use for drapery or sofa upholstery? I'm choosing those because they're large scale items. What would your suggestions be?
Okay. So I would love to answer that question, and I will answer the fabric specific questions. When it comes to
profitability, we were talking about.
When it comes to profitability specifically, there are a multitude of ways that we work with the designer to help those situations out. Number one is we 10 years ago knew that the industry was changing, and the end client, the end user, was in the understanding that the designer gets a discount. That's already transparent. So transparency becomes one of the most important aspects of working with your client. They already, most of them, know about your discount profiling. Number one is in that regard, at that time, we created a program at Threadcount called Client Direct Billing. And this is a program that's transparent for both the designer and the end user, where the designer gets, the end user gets 25% discount off the retail price, and they're invoiced that. And then it's a rebate program for the designer, and they get a 15% rebate from Threadcount. We do all the administration. We directly bill the client. And this is something you can opt in or opt out on an order-to-order basis, depending on how you're set up. So this has been worked really well for independent designers that are not set up to do payments and all the administration behind it. And it's a program that's really, really popular, and it's grown tremendously, and we've seen it. So that's one. I wanted to bring that up because we are talking about profitability now.
And it's amazing that you offer that, because I think a lot of designers, again, just from having the opportunity to connect with people, don't make money on product because they're not set up on the billing and accounting side. So the fact that you make it so easy that you take care of all of those logistics and just send the designers a commission check is creates huge opportunity.
Yes. And then the secondary part, which I'm touching on your point about building a relationship with a textile, is something we are deeply passionate about. We are believing, like, you're doing a whole piece. You can do a funky piece and a large scale piece, but really falling in love with fabrics that you love and having like a library of your favorites and building a relationship with those favorites. Because what we're actually building out now in with designers that are buying a lot of the same fabrics is we're coming out with loyalty programs and extended discounts and things like that for designers that are buying rolls and quantities of the same fabric. So that is another way that you can make more profit, is by, hey, I'm using this drapery on every, a lot of my projects across the board. I'm going to order this amount and do bulk discounting. That's another option for you.
And Can I just say that drapery is a really good example, because the yardage, there's a lot of opportunity for profit on drapery, because the yardage is, it's usually the highest amount of yardage required for in a home, right? So you can choose a mid-range or even lower price fabric, and then have opportunity to make a really good profit on it. And again, like, not everything has to be and can be a showstopper. And drapery is a really good opportunity just to allow it to blend into the design, to choose 3 fabrics and always reuse them.
Yes. Absolutely.
And you were going to say another,
I'm just going to say this input because it really, the only thing that bothers me with less cost drapery, is going too white. So I've been walking into a lot of homes and their whites are too white on the drapery side, and it makes me crazy. And I'm just like, it's just such a waste. It just looks so not luxurious. So when you're choosing, everybody, designers, when you're choosing a white, please go more on the cream or ivory side. It makes a huge difference for me. So just want to put that out there. So what were we saying?
Let's not forget that you're here as the textile expert, not.
Sorry. Okay. So you want a few more? You want a few more tips on profitability before I show you?
Because I think that this is the main thing that designers. I hear from designers who have been in business for 3 years and designers who have been in business for 20 years.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to and needs to make more money.
Okay. So I'll talk to you a little bit more about the relationship you have with vendors. The relationship you have with the vendor is a growing marriage. It's a love marriage, and sometimes
I agree with that more.
Okay. And sometimes things don't work out. We're in the materials business. So there's a realistic understanding that things can go wrong. We're working with textile, dye lots, natural flaws, natural fibers, and understanding this process, that we're not dealing with things that are, hard, tables and stuff like that. We are in the material world, and there is a realistic understanding that we are liable I just lost my train of thought. Bring me back.
It's all about, I think where you're going with this is it's not about the issues that arise, it's how the issues are dealt with.
Oh, yes. So what's the most important is that relationship and understanding that when you do grow a relationship with a supplier, for example, Threadcount, we have an understanding when something goes wrong on a project for Stacey, for example, we are there to support her. And sometimes, you know, could save you a lot of cost. This is going to be somewhere where we meet in the middle. We're like, okay, we know it wasn't on either party's faults, and we need to come together to come up with a solution. Having that backup relationship to back you up when things go wrong is probably one of the most important things in this industry. I couldn't express that more. And it goes on both sides. It goes us backing the design. It goes on both ways. It's a two-way relationship of understanding and growth, and understanding that things happen and we will work together to find solutions.
And I couldn't agree with you more that, you know, that it's not about the problems that arise, it's how they're dealt with, and that you're on the same team, and both of our end goal is that the client is happy and taken care of. And we have had issues in the past, of course. We've been working together for 15 years. Things have gone wrong with orders or fabrics, whether it's been on my end or your end. And the one thing that's remained consistent is that we've always worked as a team to figure it out, and we've ended up with a client who feels like they've been serviced appropriately.
Yeah.
So I think that that's really important. And that leads me to my next question.
I have one more point that may be interesting that I've never really, it just came up in my head now. But so speaking of longevity and, like, you know, reupholstering and the lifeline of a fabric, another really cool idea I think for designers could be to put your clients that you finished up with on a follow up with them in like 5 years, you know, kind of thing. Be like, hey, just wanted to see how you're doing, and pop in. And you never know, people want to you'll see what happens in 5 years. They want to redo their sofa. They're sick of their drapes. They're moving. There's a multitude of assets that you can tap into just by that follow-up email and re-establishing that relationship 5 years later, or, you know, staying in contact with them and keeping that relationship going.
For sure. I think that's really good advice. I mean, I've personally had clients who've come back to me for their cottages or their kids' room or whatever it is. And I think maintaining that relationship is very important. And I talked a lot about that in my workshop, that our role as designers really is to develop that relationship, and support our clients emotionally throughout the process, so that it's a positive experience for them. As we know, there's a lot of emotions associated with a renovation, or you know, even if you're just decorating a house, people are separating with a lot of money, and with that comes a lot of emotion. And we want to make sure that we are the ones that are developing a positive relationship. And if we have a team, we want to let them have, you know, the hard conversations with clients, so that when the clients do finish off the project, they have a positive feeling about us specifically, and are just open to maintaining that relationship.
Amazing. Do you want me to show you some fabric?
Yeah, I think it would be really good to see some fabrics and learn about. I know you guys have that mixed collection, which I love your mixed collection. If you can tell us a little bit about that. And
I'll just touch on some of our top draperies where we left off, and just discuss some of like the really great ones. Just really quickly, we'll go on to it.
Sure.
This is Kenzo. This is actually a recent launch of ours, made out of 100% recycled yarns, coming from plastic bottles that have been turned into yarn to make this gorgeous. It looks like a linen. It's super natural. It's got no wrinkle effect. It's wide width. And it comes in 40 colors. This is one of our, and the cost is amazing. I think the price is super reasonable. And you could see the hang. So
how it drapes.
When you're sourcing the fabric, another big thing is to really use us for technical questions. If you're making a tight upholstery versus a relaxed upholstery, if you want billow drapes versus a very tight tailored drape, these are all very important things to mention in the aesthetic when you're sourcing fabrics to your sales rep or your sales contact or whoever you're working with, so they can understand how to, you know, work with you to make sure you're choosing the right fabric for the aesthetic you're looking for. So this is Kenzo. It's to die for, and it comes in a bunch of colors. And this is a new launch of ours that we just did.
I haven't seen that yet, Al. It's beautiful.
Thank you. We just, this is one of our most popular shears ever. And it looks like a wool shear, but it's not. This is actually, it's called Serenity, and it's got a gorgeous gauzy feeling. It's super airy. We love shears because it just leaves a lot of, room for breeziness and airiness, but light to still come through. You don't necessarily, these are rooms for, you don't want to necessarily black out, but you just want to have coverage from outside looking in. You still want to have sunlight coming through. Also wide width, gorgeous option. One of our top favorites as well. And then the third drapery is 100% wool Manchester, which is one of Stacey's favorites.
That's my favorite.
So
gorgeous.
This one comes in 40 colors. Maybe I'll show you the green.
And just to go back to your design advice, when you're talking about, when you talk about not doing bright white drapery, the putty, the Manchester wool putty is to me the most gorgeous neutral to ever exist in drapery. I love it.
It is a gorgeous neutral. And the beautiful thing about wool drapery is it's natural, it's pure, it's lasts forever. The way it hangs is like literally putting a fashion suit on your wall. It tailors so beautifully. You can't tell by the camera, but this one does have a beautiful luster to it. It's very subtle. And it's one of our favorite staple go-to classic draperies at Threadcount. And it's a pure wool, so we love it. That's on the
awesome. Thank you. So before we move on to the Q&A, I do want to just ask you, a lot of designers are working from home. Some of us have offices, some of us are working from home, and not everybody obviously has the space to accommodate a sample library. I know that Threadcount has a very strong online portal and with sample requests and sourcing opportunities. Can you tell us a little bit how you cater to those designers who have sample libraries and those who don't?
Yes, I'll start with the ones that don't. So we are actually in the midst of building out our technology even further right now to make sourcing online super accurate. And I also find this to be a sustainable thing as well, because instead of ordering 50 samples to decide on a sofa, you're going to be able to actually match with a paint color online and be like, hey, I'm working with Benjamin Moore, Oxford White or whatever it is, and you can match it to our system. So we have a textile sourcing portal online for people that don't have libraries. I would say to use on a project to project basis. This textile portal, you go online and fill out a form. Stacey will send the link and you fill it out. You put your quantity, you put your inspiration pictures, you put reference paint colors in terms of us. So if you want us to get the color accurately, you would refer paint colors that you're very interested in and quantity that you're looking for on your timeline. That comes into our design team, which are all designers working for designers that are sourcing for you to get these packages out within the day or two to your desk. So I highly recommend doing this, using this portion to source samples, especially giving us the paint color. It's a fabulous tool and it works super successfully. Secondary, if you're local, then I would recommend you booking a showroom appointment and coming to meet our team and coming to see the vast collections that we have. Not everything we do is actually online. So we do, for example, if you have a blue velvet that's like you have it from another vendor, but they're out of stock and you need to find it. We have a sourcing agency portal. So we have thousands of velvets outside of our collection in our sourcing department that will go, hey, this is Stacey's looking for this blue. Her budget is $65. Stay within the budget. We will literally go into our sourcing and get you what you need. So in this regard, we're also multifaceted in that we have our collection and our sourcing engine as well. If you have a library, we have many different formats we work as you're growing with us in relationship that we offer to the designer. We have things like this, which are beautiful chain sets that go into people's libraries. And we do it, we have it, you can have it by color. When you have your initial presentation with Threadcount, we decide what the best format together is for you. And sometimes the designer's like, you know what, I just want my favorites. So we'll come up with a custom box of your go-to favorites. And then you'll have the online resource to go for all the colorways. For example, we have 80 colors in one of the velvets. You're not going to have 80 colors of velvet. We'll give you the one color with all the swatches on it with a digital card, and you can source as you need. And then there's Yeah, and then we have waterfalls and other formats as well. So in that initial meeting with Threadcount, we always come together to say what's the best way you work in your library. We're not into like inundating libraries. We really want it to be customized to your tastes, and keep it super fresh. And that's the way we work.
That's another thing I love about working with you guys is that I will get a package from you guys and it will just be a note from you saying these are things we thought that would fit well into your library that we think you would use. Like I don't just get everything that's new. You guys are so thoughtful in how you send things and really you really understand your designers and their style and the things that they use.
Thank you. And we really try to curate that. And we also send out weekly e-blasts to stay in touch with what's actually launching. We do launch a lot of fabric. So, looping into our e-blasts and seeing what's new is important to keep in touch if you want to stay updated as well.
For sure, because I'll often get an e-blast and then I'll email Caroline or your order desk and say, I love this. Can I please get a sample? And then it will show up 2 days later, which is amazing. So I have shared that link in the chat for everybody. And as a follow-up, I was actually thinking what would be amazing because there are a lot of local designers in Toronto that are part of the Design Talk community. Maybe as a follow-up, we set up a showroom visit for all the Design Talk members. And we can, you can do a presentation and we can talk, because obviously there's only so much that you can do in 30 minutes online, but we can do something in person where we can actually come in and see some of your textiles.
That. I would probably say to ask everybody that's coming to ask what the most important questions that they have are when they think about sourcing textiles and materials, and we can cater it to around what the hottest topics are.
Great. Yeah, I can definitely organize that. Yeah, so we do have a few. We're going to move on to the Q&A. I'm going to answer the ones or tell you the ones first that people have asked in the chat on here. Sophia Samir has asked, what would be an alternative material-wise for longevity? Sophia, can you just clarify in the chat, because you wrote that a little bit earlier. And while you are clarifying, I'm going to move on to Andrea's question. And Andrea's asking, how can I create a versatile go-to collection that can work for people's different styles? So I guess assuming maybe she works from home and wants to create, a deck of fabrics that she can use across different styles.
Yes. Okay. So how I usually would say that is, I think plains, textures, and intricate weaves across the board can work in any style. So I think keeping patterns out of your library and using that, maybe do, I would say for pattern, you do something like more modern pattern for like geometrics and stripes, and that for the client that likes that, or a more artistic box for more abstract patterns of like someone that wants, an abstract artistic vibe, or people that don't love pattern at all. I would do a very fashion forward color library with the highest, the shades that are like right now, what we're seeing is beautiful greens and rust oranges and really up to the minute colorations that are actually happening now, not the old colors that we're not seeing right now, not the grays, but something really fashion forward, really sexy. You keep it in a box on its own. And then I would have my classic neutrals. Every classic neutrals go again across the board into every caliber. And I would always have that prepared for every client.
For sure. And that goes back to what I was saying about have your go-tos, like your neutrals for your drapery, your sofa, and switch it up with throw pillows, like you said, because the accents in a room always end up tying everything together and really can make a difference from one design to the next.
Yeah.
So Sophia has clarified her question. She's saying that if you don't, if you're not for stain guarding, is there a fabric that you can suggest that would be good for people with kids and pets for a more durable, that's more durable and stain resistant? Like let's talk about sofas, for example.
Yes.
For a young family with pets.
Yes, that's a great question. It comes down to the fiber level and also the type of weave when you're selecting the fabric. So there's content involved in the type of weave and how it's woven that ends up becoming the technical questions in this regard. It would be, we have some, like I could show you off the bat, for example, this would be a great option just to give an example of one. This is called mid-century. It's a recycled poly cotton. This one would be a fantastic option. I can't say that any fabric will be bulletproof, but what I always recommend when you have that little swatch in your hand, and I do this myself, even in our own collections, I test it for stains. So I take that little swatch and I'll be like, I'll put like a little ketchup in it. I'll let it sit. I'll take a cloth and a hot dabber and I'll wipe it. And that's literally how I test fabrics live in the we do that with all of our fabrics, so you don't have to worry if it's from Threadcount, like in general, unless it's like a linen. There's a sacrifice that comes with luxury. So there are, if you're using linens and things like that, linen is durable and will stand the test of time and look beautiful. But if you're spilling red wine on it and you're rubbing it out, you are probably going to get some leftover stain on that. So being okay with that is one of the options. I would say wool is one of my favorites. This is a really good option. Where is it? Sorry if I'm taking time.
That's okay.
Okay. Okay, well, I don't have it here. I would say like we have a product called Tobin and Gusto. They're wool.
I love Tobin.
Yeah, so Tobin, they're wool felts. They're unbelievably resilient. Mohairs are unbelievably resilient. And
well, that goes into our next question, because Alessia is asking, she's saying she's heard mixed things about mohairs, and she's asking if you can talk a little bit about the durability of fabrics.
Oh,
of the durability of mohair, not fabrics.
Sure. Well, mohair for us is one of our top weaves. We carry over 3,000 mohairs in our library. This is a mohair made out of 100% wool, and I will tell you right now that it stands the test of time. The only problem or issue that you would ever have with a mohair when you're going to the longer hair mohairs, for example, our Gatsby, which is like this guy right here, it's super thick, the hairs are longer. You might get over time someone sitting down and it mats down. But what happens in that situation is they just steam it and the hairs pop right back up. Literally, mohair to me is, and at any level, is and what it does to a space, it turns it into luxury right away. We have mohairs across the board from $100 to $500 a yard. So in regards to performance, it's one of my top highest performing naturals.
Good to know. Thank you. Alessia is also asking if you can give us a quick rundown on fabrics, like, for example, like different fibers, and then the pros and cons of fabrics. And I don't know if that's something that's for today, or if that would be a follow-up thing when we actually come to your showroom. But again, I think that a lot of people who have been in the industry for a long time, there's so much for us to learn about. I mean, even myself, like, I don't know everything about every fiber.
I think I'm going to, instead of going, like, fiber is very important. It's definitely one of the factors in making decisions. But there's a lot of technical, everyone needs to understand there's this fixation right now on rub counts in North America and how high the rub count is, and making decision and what's durable and what's not durable. If you don't know what a rub count is, there are tests that are done with a machine on a fabric to test how many rubs it takes before it starts to destruct. That's 1 out of 15 tenths. Then there's tear strength. One of the most important things that most designers don't even think about is, where is the fabric located in the room, and is there direct sunlight hitting that fabric? Okay. If you have direct sunlight hitting the fabric all day long, you better make sure you're putting a UV coating on that window, or you're making sure you're putting drapery up to make sure that fabric gets protected. It doesn't matter what kind of fabric it is, that fabric will burn through with UV resistance over time. What else can I tell you about in terms of durability? Yes, Martindale and Weizenbeek rub counts are important, but I would say it's not the more the better. At a 15,000 rub count, you're in a high performance level fabric. At a 30,000 rub count, you're at a contract level fabric. I've seen fabrics that have 1 million rub counts. It honestly, at that point, it's really, like, to me, a joke. And it's not authentic, and there's a lot of other ways to make decisions on performance, whether one fiber is better than the other. For example, linen is one of the strongest fibers in the entire world. Okay, but you have to understand, when you're using a linen on a sofa, you're going for a specific aesthetic. It's going to be more relaxed. You're not going The
You're gonna get the wrinkles.
will stretch. You're going for that Montauk look, that relaxed look, that over time you're okay with sitting in it, and the linen will stretch and relax over time and look beautiful. Every single fiber has its own characteristics and usage. Wool, like a felt, you're good to go. You're good. It's tight. You do it tight wool, thick wool felt. You're amazing, indestructible, beautiful, strong. Synthetics across the board have a pilling issue. So you have to be careful when you're doing these very affordable synthetic options that are coming out with Krypton and this and that. You have to make sure we've seen pilling issues on this stuff, it's going out of style. We see it all the time. So pilling is another test that goes onto the fabric that's there. If you want to see all the technical tests that are going into a textile, there's two things. One is we have technical sheets online. Everything is not on the tag. Most of the things are on the tag, but the deep technical are always on the technical sheets, where you go onto the website and you'll see tech sheet there that has the technical gauges. I'm happy to email out what those gauges and thresholds are if you need it. But I'm also saying use that in conjunction with your sales rep to give you the knowledge on what will work for the kind of style of the piece that you're going for. Because it does matter what kind of stuffing you're using, what kind of upholstery it all matters. It's a whole circle of mattering, from the way it's made into what kind of materials you're using for the upholstery side as well.
Okay, sorry to cut you off, but I just want to clarify so that I myself have a deeper understanding as well. So when I understand, obviously the type of upholstery and the application is very important, but when looking at the actual textile, you're saying that the things that we need to consider are not only the fiber and the rub count, but we need to consider the weave.
Yes.
So like a tighter weave, are you suggesting would be more durable than a looser weave?
Yes, tighter weaves, you'll get less napping. If you have animals, they won't pick and frill out. You want to look at more tightness in the weave for sure. You want to look at, some mixed blends are nice. If you're going into the synthetic, so something that's not 100% synthetic, but has some natural attributes mixed within synthetic that gives it a natural feeling and look, but has the performance structure, that's a beautiful combination to have.
And would you suggest that if we were to go that route, then we would be at risk for less risk for pilling if it's mixed with a natural fiber?
You have to look at the pilling tests. So pilling test rates from 1 to 5. And 5 is the highest. So I would always suggest looking at a pilling test. To me, pilling is something that it could happen within a year of your sofa being upholstered. We at Threadcount, if anything pills within three months, it's out of our collection. We are crazy about that stuff. So any performance issues, we pull it right out of our lines if that ever happened. But sometimes, it could say a high pilling and things happen. You don't know. Someone could have been wearing a specific material on their pants that all of a sudden didn't react well with the sofa, and you don't know what happened. Things happen.
Okay, got it. Well, this was, we could continue this conversation obviously for another hour, but we are running. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I know that everybody has a busy work day, and I want to thank you, Al, for being here today, our first guest on our very first Design Talk live session, and for your patience last week, and just for giving us sharing all of your knowledge. This is a very small percentage of your knowledge, but just sharing with us and educating us on this topic. I think it's really helpful, and I'm sure a lot of designers would love to come and visit Threadcount, so I will do a follow-up. And thank you to all the designers that joined us today. And
thank you, Stacey, and thank you, everybody, and really appreciate you guys all having me. And yes, it's a loaded question. There's lots of information out there, and it's an evolution for us as well, being a supplier and vendor. Things are changing so much right now, and it's important to just ask the questions and stay in touch. And we can only, keep in touch and keep asking the questions, because things are moving so quickly in all aspects. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, have a great day, everybody. Bye.
Bye.